When I woke up, I was in the hospital. A nearby nurse looked shocked and rushed over to me. According to the nurse, it seems I had been in a car accident and had been unconscious for over 3 years. Moreover, the nurse informed me that my daughter, Nicole, was currently in the middle of her wedding ceremony. My daughter is getting married? I hadn't even heard she had a boyfriend 3 years ago, let alone that she was getting married. Had she grown up so much without me knowing? As a parent, I felt both happy and lonely, it's hard to describe. After a while, when the doctors had calmed down, Nicole interrupted her wedding and rushed to see me in her bridal gown. She must have hurried over. Her makeup and dress were a bit disheveled, but Nicole looked beautiful as a bride. The man next to her must be her husband. He was wearing a tuxedo that matched Nicole's dress well. "Mom, I'm so glad." As she cried and held my hand, I couldn't help but tear up as well. "I'm glad you woke up." Senior, no, Mother. It was then that I realized. He was Ryan Collins, a junior from my workplace. Unbeknownst to me, my daughter had married my junior. "You've become so respectable." Just as we were having this touching moment, the two started whispering seriously to each other. "What should we do, our plan?" I heard those words. Plan? I repeated the words I had heard. Nicole was too shocked to reply, so Ryan started talking with a serious expression. "Mother, actually, we intended to do something at the wedding today." Ryan then explained the whole plan to me from the beginning. When I woke up, I was looking at an unfamiliar ceiling. I couldn't remember why I was here immediately. But I knew it was a hospital. I could also remember my name. My name is Debbie White. As I looked around, trying to remember what had happened before I arrived, my eyes met those of a nearby nurse. The nurse looked astonished and rushed over to me. According to the nurse, it seems I had been in a car accident and had been unconscious for over 3 years. I did a simple calculation of my age before I lost consciousness. It seems I had just been sleeping and had now turned 52. The nurse kindly explained this to me and called another nurse and then the attending doctor. The doctor immediately came to my room to check on me. One nurse said, "I'll contact your family," and left the room. Another nurse informed me that my daughter Nicole was in the middle of her wedding ceremony. From the doctor's hustle, I could tell that my awakening was nearly a miracle, even to me. More importantly, what? Nicole is getting married? I hadn't even heard she had a boyfriend 3 years ago. Had she grown up so much without my knowing? As a parent, I felt both happy and lonely, it's hard to describe. After confirming I was fine, the doctor smiled and said, "Really, I'm glad you woke up." Before leaving the room. Once the doctors had settled down, Nicole, still in her wedding dress, came to see me. She must have hurried over. Her makeup and dress were a bit disheveled, but Nicole looked beautiful as a bride. I wish I could have seen her properly at the ceremony. The man next to her must be her husband. He was wearing a tuxedo that matched Nicole's dress well. "Mom, I'm so glad." As she cried and held my hand, I couldn't help but tear up as well. "I'm glad you woke up." "Senior, no, Mother." "Senior," he said, and then I realized. He was Ryan Collins, a junior from my workplace. Somehow, Nicole had ended up marrying my junior. "You've become so respectable." His outfit might have helped, but compared to 3 years ago, his facial expression was clearly different. He had clearly become a mature adult man. Just as we were having this touching moment, the two began whispering seriously to each other. That's understandable, since they had interrupted their important wedding for me. What should we do, our plan? I barely understood the content, but I heard those words. Plan? I repeated the words I had heard. Nicole was too shocked to reply, so Ryan started talking with a serious expression. Mother, actually, we intended to do something at the wedding today. Ryan then revealed the whole plan to me, tracing back to before my accident. I had married John, a man I met through business dealings, who was a year older than me, after he had ardently pursued me. We were blessed with a precious daughter, Nicole, who turned 24 this year, making us a family of 3. However, I hadn't always felt happy. My husband hardly did any housework at all. I had accepted his proposal because before our marriage, he seemed like a person who cared deeply about me. It's nice, isn't it? You earn more than I do. After we got married, he changed. He knew I earned more before we got married and had talked about continuing to work together and helping with household chores after our marriage, but once we were married, he nagged every day about how I earned more. Feeling inferior because he couldn't outperform me in both work and household chores, my husband probably wanted to at least dominate me verbally. At home, he began to nag and pick on me incessantly. I wish you would stop saying things like that. Initially, I would argue back or try to discuss things with him. However, no matter what I said, my husband would negate it, and he never accepted anything I said. It was impossible to have a discussion with him. Gradually, I grew tired of responding and decided to just ignore everything. No matter what he said, I wouldn't talk back or show any sign of being upset. I hoped he would find it uninteresting and stop if I didn't react, but instead, he took my silence as a license to say whatever he wanted. Still, knowing it was futile to argue back, I endured and tried not to let his words disturb me. One day, it was discovered that I was pregnant with Nicole. I was genuinely happy to have a child. I'd like one of each, a girl and a boy. He had said this with a smile before we got married. He liked children, and I thought he would help with raising them. So I believed that he would change once our daughter was born. But the reality was different, and even after Nicole's birth, his attitude didn't change. Work, household chores, and now childcare were all left to me alone. However, divorce was not an option for me. Fortunately, my husband never resorted to violence, nor did he ever speak harshly to Nicole. Above all, I didn't want Nicole to grow up without a father. For Nicole's sake, I endured everything my husband said. The conversation about wanting 2 children, I wonder when he forgot about that. After Nicole was born, my husband and I no longer slept in the same bed. Nicole seemed to understand my feelings as she grew up healthy and strong. Eventually, she graduated from university, got a job, and moved out of the house. I was happy to see Nicole become a respectable adult, but the real tragedy was yet to come. As soon as it was just my husband and me at home, his nagging intensified more than ever before. His overtime at work increased, reducing the time he spent at home, but his harshness towards me only grew. Overwhelmed by stress and fatigue, I ended up crashing into a utility pole while driving, which left me unconscious for 3 years. When Nicole was informed of my accident, she left work immediately and rushed to the hospital. The surgery was successful, but the doctor said it was uncertain when I would wake up and that I could pass away at any time. Hearing this, Nicole decided to take care of me, and she has been looking after me ever since. Meanwhile, my husband left all the caregiving to Nicole and lived freely. Oddly enough, he had a good public facade, so people from my workplace and our neighbors treated him with respect based on his outward appearance. It has always been like this. He was charming to everyone but me, liked by the neighborhood ladies, and had a good reputation at work in terms of position and relationships. That's why I was completely deceived by him before we got married. His attitude after marriage was his true self. Outwardly, he wanted to be seen as a good person, but at home, he wanted someone weaker than himself, like a wife, to dominate. But I ended up handling both the housework and childcare, and ultimately, I was better at work as well. He must have wanted to assert his dominance over me, which is why he said whatever he wanted every day. Other than my husband and Nicole, the only people who visited me in the hospital were my best friend, Vanessa, and my junior, Ryan Collins. Nicole knew Vanessa as my best friend. I had invited Vanessa to our home several times, and she had met Nicole during those visits. Vanessa came to visit me 2 days after I was hospitalized, and it was the first time she and Nicole talked alone. "I'll come to see you again sometime, so don't overdo it, Nicole," Vanessa said, showing concern for her. Indeed, Vanessa came to visit me every 1 or 2 months, and Nicole was grateful for that. Nicole and Ryan met when they came to visit me. Ryan, a junior who joined my company as a new graduate, had attended the same university as Nicole, so she had been quite helpful to him. He was 2 years older than my daughter, and I remember being happy to take care of him as if he were my son. I had helped him solve some work-related problems several times, and he was grateful for that. Wanting to do something for me, he frequently visited the hospital and was very supportive of Nicole. Through my hospitalization, Nicole realized how inappropriate her father's attitude towards me was. As Nicole and Ryan became closer, she began to confide in him about her uncooperative father, which led them to develop a closer relationship and eventually start dating. Nicole had repeatedly asked her father to visit me in the hospital, but he continued to refuse, citing work as his reason. In fact, my husband only visited me the day after the accident. He had been unreachable on the day of the accident and only showed up at the hospital for 30 minutes the next day before leaving. He seemed sad that day, but I'm sure it was just an act to look good in front of others. I know it because, based on his behavior over the years, there's no way he was genuinely worried about me being unconscious. He had always been good at presenting a likable face to others. One day, when Nicole went to pick up some of my belongings from our house, she witnessed something shocking. This led to the plan they intended to carry out at the wedding. Shockingly, my husband and Vanessa were having an affair in our home. That day, my husband had also told Nicole he was working. All those times he said he was working were lies. Taking advantage of my hospitalization, he had started bringing Vanessa to our home. Nicole left the scene without letting them notice her and immediately consulted with Ryan. "First, let's gather evidence of the affair." Ryan calmed Nicole down and helped her respond rationally. From then on, Nicole and Ryan carefully gathered evidence of the affair without letting my husband and Vanessa notice. It turned out my husband and Vanessa had been having an affair even before I fell unconscious. On the day of my accident, my husband had also been with Vanessa. Now I understand why his overtime increased after Nicole got a job. He was having an affair. However, I no longer loved my husband enough to suspect him of infidelity. After I was gone, my husband and Vanessa were planning to remarry. Among the evidence of the affair, there was a brochure for a honeymoon trip. Since I fell unconscious, I heard that my parents' inheritance, which my husband had been waiting for with someone else, was expected to flow to my husband. My parents had passed away many years ago, and there was a considerable inheritance. When I discussed this with my husband, I told him, "We should save this for a rainy day. If I were gone, all the inheritance would go to my husband." But the thought that he was planning to use it to remarry Vanessa was chilling. Nicole and Ryan had already gathered enough evidence of the affair using a detective. And 2 years had passed since I became unconscious. I know it's been incredibly hard with both your dad and mom's situations. But I will support you through it all, so please marry me. Ryan proposed to Nicole, and they got engaged. At the same time, Ryan came up with a plan. "Let's show everyone the evidence of the affair between your father and Vanessa at our wedding." Nicole agreed to the plan, and they began preparing for the wedding. Unaware of such preparations, my husband and Vanessa continued to enjoy their affair, thinking I was out of the picture. Vanessa, however, continued to visit me as usual. Why she came is beyond me. Was she praying for me to disappear as she looked at my unconscious face? I can't help but think that way. Nicole was confused about how to behave towards Vanessa, who made the effort to visit. After all, this was the woman having an affair with her father. It would be strange to behave normally. Every time Nicole saw Vanessa, she was reminded of Vanessa at home with her father and felt an urge to shout at her. Still, to ensure the success of their plan, she had to pretend everything was normal and not reveal anything. There were times when Vanessa visited while Ryan was there. That was the first time Ryan and Vanessa had met. They only made small talk, though. Vanessa expressed concern for Nicole and Ryan, talked about me, and spent about 30 minutes chatting in the room. The atmosphere was not bad at all, sometimes even mixed with laughter. That person, having an affair. Ryan muttered this after Vanessa left. From Vanessa's demeanor that day, Ryan couldn't imagine she was involved in an affair. Later, Nicole and Ryan discussed Vanessa. Vanessa was the same age as me but looked younger for her age. She was always well dressed, her makeup perfect, and she took great care of her figure. Unlike me, who was always too busy to care much about my appearance. Not that I looked terrible, but still. As for Vanessa's romantic life, I hadn't heard much about it. She got married around the same time I did, but she was divorced within 5 years. Her partner didn't seem like a bad person either. But I thought it inappropriate to dig deeper into her divorce, so I never asked. And I knew nothing about her romantic life thereafter. However, Vanessa seemed to have a fulfilling job and social life, so she didn't appear to want to remarry. And to think it was an affair. Or perhaps, was it a complication from her previous romantic experiences? I can't understand the feelings of someone who has had an affair, nor do I want to, but Vanessa and I have been friends since college, for decades. She was the one person I could call a close friend without reservation, and it's disappointing. Now, the wedding preparations were nearing completion. If we play this at the end of the reception. Nicole looked at the finished tape while Ryan nodded vigorously. The plan was to show the evidence of the affair between my husband and Vanessa in the final video of the reception. Of course, both my husband and Vanessa were invited to the ceremony, and they both attended that day. All that was left was to play the video. Nicole and Ryan were imagining the faces of Vanessa and my husband when the video was played. They never thought the affair would be revealed to all the guests at the end of the wedding. It would be the ultimate humiliation for both of them. All that remained was to see the wedding day through without incident. The plan had gone smoothly so far. The wedding started as scheduled, and the reception was nearing its end without any issues. Then, just before the video was to be played, the hospital called to say I had awakened. The wedding was immediately interrupted. Nicole and Ryan, still in their wedding attire, hopped into a taxi and came to the hospital, leading to the present moment. This is everything that happened while you were unconscious, Mom. Ryan finished explaining everything. My husband, having an affair with Vanessa. After my whisper, no one else spoke. In the quiet room, I was left to ponder alone. Hearing it all, I still couldn't fully believe it. Not satisfied with just nagging at me, he had to have an affair with my best friend. How low can a person sink? I feel foolish for not noticing, but to have an affair with Vanessa, my best friend, if that's really true, they're both beyond reason. Having an affair right under my nose and enjoying it while I was unconscious is unforgivable. As I couldn't speak anymore, eventually the door to the hospital room opened. It was my husband and Vanessa who appeared. Debbie. I'm so glad you woke up. Really, I am. Vanessa rushed to me first. My husband also approached, showing concern. Since Nicole, Ryan, and even the nurse who just arrived are here, they must be putting on a show for them. After the nurse who accompanied my husband and Vanessa left the room, I nodded slightly to the nurse and then turned my gaze to my husband and Vanessa. At that moment, I was somehow able to think about my husband and Vanessa calmly. They were both dressed nicely, probably still in their reception outfits. Yet, compared to Nicole and Ryan who came from the same place, they were too late. 30 minutes difference, what does that mean? More importantly, did these two come together? Did they take their time coming here while regretting that I had awakened? If that's the case, it's disturbing. Thinking that they both might secretly wish I were gone makes me feel sick, and I shook off Vanessa's hand that she was holding. "What are you doing?" lashing out at a friend who came all this way. Vanessa, shocked, said nothing. John stepped forward to defend her. "Is this what they call a woman's intuition?" In that moment, from their exchange, I became convinced of their affair. "Nicole, Ryan, please, I'm asking you to get them out of here." Vanessa, still not grasping the situation, looked perplexed, while John expressed nothing but anger. To them, I added firmly, "I've heard all about your affair. I've endured everything up to now, but no more. We are getting a divorce. And Vanessa, you are no longer a friend or anything to me, just a stranger. Please, both of you, never appear in front of me again." At my words, Vanessa, reacting faster than John, glared at me and finally showed her true nature. "All you had to do was leave us the money. You just had to mess with our happiness." Vanessa approached me with a look I had never seen before. Nicole intervened to stop her, and Ryan restrained John, who followed. "Are you sure you'll be okay without me? You'll regret this." Even now, John was trying to assert his dominance with his words, forgetting Nicole and Ryan were there, and continued to barrage me as usual. "Yes, I'm better off without you." I looked at him coldly. John's face turned red rapidly. Both he and Vanessa became increasingly loud and agitated until the nurses came to see what was happening. A nurse tried to calm them down, saying, "This is a hospital." But they wouldn't quiet down. Eventually, Vanessa and John were escorted out of the hospital. I never thought we'd confront them about the affair in such a manner. Once the commotion settled and the room quieted down, I finally had a moment to breathe. "Nicole, Ryan, thank you so much." I hadn't yet expressed my gratitude to them. For 3 years while I was unconscious, they took care of me and thoroughly investigated John and Vanessa's affair. I could never thank them enough. Nicole and Ryan exchanged looks, and then Ryan knelt before me. "I apologize for the late introduction, Mother. I want to marry your daughter, Nicole. I promise I will make her happy." Ryan spoke nervously. He was just a sweet junior at work 3 years ago. For the past 3 years, he had been a constant support for Nicole and me. There was no way I would deny their marriage. "Of course, Ryan. I trust you with my daughter. Make each other happy." Ryan smiled with relief upon hearing my response. Soon after, I was discharged from the hospital. While I was still in the hospital, Nicole and Ryan kept me updated on everything. Their wedding had to be cancelled, and they sent apologies to all the guests, including the evidence of the affair they had planned to reveal. Although the original plan and method were different, the affair was exposed to all the guests. John, whose company had dealings with the hospital, had the entire incident at the hospital reported to his company, revealing the affair and stripping away his facade. This significantly reduced his standing at work. At least he wasn't fired, which is something. Vanessa, whose source of exposure is unknown, has been vilified as a cruel woman who stole a husband and pushed a friend into unconsciousness. Although the story might be exaggerated, such a punishment is well-deserved, I believe. I divorced him and collected a significant settlement from both of them. Since our house was in my name, I sold it, leaving John without a home. The compensation and his search for a new home have put John in a financially tough spot. I found a new place to live comfortably by myself. I planned to return to work after being discharged, but the aftermath of the accident made it impossible, so I retired. Still, with the settlement, gifts, and my savings, I have no worries about my financial future. I've decided to enjoy life, making up for the 3 lost years by taking up new hobbies. I heard that John and Vanessa broke up spectacularly not long after. Rumor has it Vanessa approached John for his money, thinking he was wealthier than he was because he never told her I was the higher earner. Vanessa, furious upon finding out she had been duped and facing financial ruin after the divorce, berated him. I thought you had money, and that's why I wanted to remarry, you liar. Of course, it's a rumor, but the truth of their relationship is likely close to this narrative. Vanessa may have wanted to marry again for happiness, but I have no sympathy for her. John, who was duped by Vanessa, who presented herself as supportive, must feel the weight of his choices. While it's somewhat sad that they've lost everything, they've likely experienced a bitterness that matches or exceeds the 3 years I lost. Seeing them get there just deserts has cleared my conscience. Once, John came to see me, pleading. I was wrong. Please, let's start over. For the first time, he pleaded to me, but I called the police to have him taken away. I made sure from the officers that he would never approach me again. Although I was initially scared when he suddenly appeared, it was the first time I had seen him so desperate. Meanwhile, Nicole and Ryan live happily together. They made sure my new home was close to theirs. We spend time together frequently, going out as a trio. I truly believe I am now living the happiest moments of my life. I'm looking forward to seeing my grandchild soon.